Welcome to the Krista Redpath Show, where sports take center stage and stories come to life. I'm your host, Krista, veteran analyst and passionate storyteller, bringing you weekly in-depth conversations and sharp analysis across the world of sports. The Krista Redpath Show, breaking down the game, elevating the story, and championing the female voice. Today's show is brought to you by Vertical Raise, your premier online fundraising platform. A clear, concise message with the best technology interfaces. To learn more about Vertical Raise, please visit verticalraise406.com. Today, I am excited to take you around the big sky in women's hoops. When Tricia Binford took over the Montana State women's basketball program in 2005, the Bobcats were searching for direction. 21 seasons later, she's delivered a legacy of consistency, culture, and championship success. The five-time Big Sky Coach of the Year and all-time winningest coach in Bobcat history has led Montana State to 18 straight winning seasons, 3 Big Sky tournament titles, and multiple regular season crowns, all while building one of the league's most respected academic and community-minded programs. Before Bozeman, Binford was a dynamic point guard at Boise State, where she set the program's assist record under the guidance of the late June Daugherty and Mike Daugherty. She played professionally for the Utah Starzz and Cleveland Rockers, mentored there by veteran coach Dan Hughes, and spent 2 seasons competing in Australia. Raised in Carbondale, Colorado, Binford was a Colorado Player of the Year and U.S. Olympic Festival participant before beginning her coaching career at Boise State and Utah State. Off the court, she credits her husband Todd for his unwavering support and balance through demands of Division I coaching, and their children, Brooklynn and Justin, remain her proudest inspiration. From player to mentor, Binford's journey is built on faith, family, and fierce competitiveness, the same traits that continue to define Bobcat basketball today. Today, I am so excited to welcome in Trish Binford to the Krista Redpath Show. Welcome in, Coach Binford.
Thanks for having me, Krista. It's a privilege to be on here. I'm excited to be with you.
Coach Binford, I need to go back to the beginning with you. I thought I'd start the show back in 2005 when you were named the 11th head coach for Montana State. But then there's just like this whole story we had to get to. And so I want to bring up your childhood just briefly and talk about just a little bit about growing up. So you were born in Decatur, Illinois. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Decatur, Illinois. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of like the soybean capital of the world is what I was reading, like really agricultural, industrial, and kind of booming back in the mid 70s. And also the birthplace of the Chicago Bears. I found that fascinating.
I mean, that is fascinating. To be honest, I don't know much about Illinois. I was 4 years old when we moved from there to Carbondale.
Yes.
So I feel like I have been raised in Carbondale, Colorado. But yeah, I mean, when we do trivia, nobody knows that I was born in Illinois. So now they do.
Yes, there you go. So Roaring Fork High School in Carbondale. And it's not a very big town of Carbondale. So can you talk about what it was like growing up there?
Yeah, it's extremely small and one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see. So the backdrop is Mount Sopris. At the time, I think we had 49 in my class, so about a high school of 250 people. But my brother and sister were older. My dad started as the principal, then he went on to be the superintendent of that school district. And everybody knew everybody, and everybody played and did every activity possible. So everybody did the sports, the plays, the student council. It just, you got to kind of grow in all facets, and I absolutely loved it. We loved the outdoors.
So your parents, Jim and Lynn Bader, and your sister, Kristen, and your brother, Jeff. So you grew up with 2 siblings, and you're the youngest. So what was that like growing up with older siblings?
Well, first of all, my sister's 5 years older than me and my best friend now. But when we were younger, there was a little bit of that gap of time. And so she was kind of the mother, or, the oldest is always the most organized, takes charge. But I really grew up following my brother because I was 3 years younger than him. And we lived kind of outside of town in Swiss Village, which was up in the mountains and the trees. And our neighborhood had a bunch of boys. And so I was always the tag along. When we moved down into town was more towards middle school. But I just remember many days my dad put up a hoop with my uncle in our driveway. And that's where my brother and I spent a lot of time, and me running in, crying and complaining about him picking on me, and my dad saying, or my mom saying, you don't have to play against him. And I just kept doing it. And my siblings were kind of my role models. Kristen, kind of went through the sports first. And so got to see her pure jump shot. My brother jumped out of the gym. And just a really incredible way to grow up. But just wonderful friends and being out in the mountains, learning how to play. That's the other dynamic too, is we created our fun, and TVs weren't on. We didn't have cell phones. So it was, you checked in, when you left the house, and when you came back in, we did tick checks and had dinner, but we would be gone for hours. It was just super fun.
Was it always basketball? Was there any other sports you were drawn to when you were younger?
It actually probably started for skiing. I learned how to ski as soon as we moved there. So we were pretty close to Aspen, and my dad would drive the school bus every Saturday over. So I was on the ski team probably by 5, 6 years old, did slalom. But I think back then it was kind of like if he drove the school bus, he could ski for $5. I don't even know what it is to ski, Bridger or Big Sky nowadays. But we were on the slopes, the entire family, every single weekend. So tried a little bit of everything. Soccer, summers, we would do softball, volleyball, track. So when we got to close to high school is when kind of felt the nudge of choosing either basketball or ski. I have never been a fan of cold weather, even though I've always lived in the coldest climates. So the basketball seemed to be a no-brainer, especially it was a team sport. And that's where kind of basketball, track, and volleyball were the three primary. But basketball became the love once that hoop went in that driveway.
You were a Street and Smith's High School All-American. When you went through the recruiting process, can you walk us through what that recruiting process was like?
To be quite honest, I had grown up wanting to go to a place in Colorado. It was the closest so my family could see me compete. Honestly, I'd never seen a college game before I played in my first game because we were so remote. We were 3 hours from the closest Division I college, but had grown up admiring the Colorado program heavily. Seal Berry was the coach there. Also had gone to a camp in Utah, University of Utah. And so, with Elaine Elliott. But when the visits started coming, that was different back then where you would do home visits. And I was in such a remote location. Really, the only time I think coaches got to see me was at State. And the Boise State assistant was from Colorado. So she saw me at State. That's kind of how Boise State kind of came into the mix. Whereas the Colorado schools, I did home visits with both Colorado State and Colorado, but I narrowed down my official visits to Colorado, St. Mary's, and Boise State. And mainly St. Mary's was kind of that, you're like, ooh, California, that sounds fun. Really impressed with the coach. June, on the home visit, just, you open up the door and here's this 6'4" presence that reminds you of Princess Diana, and she just overwhelms you with her vision for the program. And then Seal Berry was just such a powerful name with a program that was doing so well. But ultimately, June won that over very quickly on that visit.
And your relationship with June Daugherty, I had a chance to meet her, and obviously just an incredible coach, and unfortunate that she's no longer with us. But can you talk about what it was like to play under her?
Yeah, I'm like, when you think about similarities, people probably would look at June and I and be like, there is nothing similar. I'm like, she's 6'4" and I'm 5'4", and she was a post, I'm a point guard. But what gravitated me to her was her passion, and she loved defense. So Mike, her husband, would kind of focus on the offense. She would focus on the defense. And that's where my heart was. I just always loved the defensive end. And, when she showed up at the home visit, she told me I looked taller. So I'm like, I was done right there. She had a way of bringing confidence in anybody. She had a vision that the atmosphere we were going to create. We were going to sell out the pavilion. At the time, it was called the Pavilion. We were going to win the conference. I'm like all kinds of things. And literally, I think she accomplished every single one at Boise State. And the vision of me being a part of that was what overwhelmed me. So, we, and Sunny being my associate, Sunny had a chance to work with June. I'm like, we desperately miss her. We got to see Mike this summer. This world is not the same with June not in it, because she has a passion for life. She has energy for people, and she was invested in others. I'm like, I think about everything she did to be in my corner every day of my career, whether player or going on to play professionally. She literally got me the shot to get a tryout with the Utah Starzz. My coaching career is just hard when I need wisdom and I can't pick up that phone call and call her.
You played on some of the best teams in not only Boise State history, but the Big Sky Conference history. You had just a tremendous success. I think about that 1993-1994 year where you were regular season co-champs with Montana. In that season, you had that amazing sellout, 11,558 fans. I mean, that's just incredible in the pavilion. And that year was marked by Montana and Boise State going back and forth in the AP, top 25. And I'm in high school at the time, so I'm watching that. I'm going, wow, we have these two premier schools. And then you can't even leave Montana State out of that, because the year prior with Cass Bauer, Montana State was a powerhouse. But Montana wins that coin toss to host the tournament, and they ended up defeating you. But you got an at-large that year, the first time the Big Sky Conference has ever produced an at-large bid. Can you talk about that year?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say if anybody says the Big Sky can't produce WNBA players, I'm like, you can't tell me Shannon Schwinn is not good enough to play in the WNBA. I'm like, the only reason she didn't go on was with her shoulder injury. And then you've got Cass Bauer, who played her career in the WNBA longer than what I even played in the WNBA. So that year was pretty fascinating if you were a fan of the Big Sky in general, with the talent across the board. To have two teams that were ranked in the top 25 is just crazy to even think about. At the time, we just knew to be in the grind. I'm like, June was never afraid. And that's one of the things that I've taken away from her is I'm always going to challenge our team in the preseason with the games that we play. June never shied away thinking about what was good to make sure you had a good record going in a conference. It was about playing the best and becoming the best. And we played at UCLA. She was pregnant with the twins. I remember, and that's Natalie going up against Natalie Williams, who's an Olympian. We hit a shot to take the lead with a few seconds left on the clock. And she's literally going down the floor pregnant in I think a gold suit. And I'm like, just looking at her say, don't foul, don't foul. I'm like, that was a big moment. Western Kentucky on their home floor was a big moment. Their coach actually broke a pen and was like foaming at the mouth with the pen. I'm like, we had so many intense preseason games. And then you have the two Montana schools in addition to that. It's really hard to explain the sold out game. For the first time it got sold out to be a women's game. When we're talking about women's sports now on how well we're doing. Back then, we sold out that pavilion, and us in Montana, and it was just, I didn't have a great game. I just remember doing like the wave with the crowd and just being in the element and in the moment, and June making the most of not getting the coin toss. Really proud of that team, to be a part of that team. And June she started that vision.
So Lydia Barbona, am I saying that?
Barbonova. Yeah, Barbonova.
Do you keep up with her, or what is she up to now?
Yeah, so she's kind of moved around and she lives in Nampa, I believe, now with her husband, and have had a chance to visit with her quite some time, probably not in the last year and a half, but June has a way of keeping us all connected too. So had a chance to visit with her when she moved back, but she went on to play professionally back home for over 20 plus years. And so one of the the all-time Boise State greats that I've ever witnessed. I'm like, I think she was first in the nation with her field goal percentage, over 74%, something like that. Yeah, she just had a smoothness about her that, the high-low with her and Tori, the other young lady from Bulgaria as well. Lydia was another professional in that league that certainly could have played, but was unbelievable to be a teammate with.
I want to talk about 1993 when you made the West team at the U.S. Olympic Festival. Could you talk about that? How did that come about?
June. So June kind of knew like all the behind the scenes, like how these teams get represented. And of course, I'm a young college student that doesn't even know these festivals are an option or exist. And I think she got me an invite to the tryout, and she was there. Myself and Verna, another teammate, both went. And it was just June kind of giving us feedback of just keep competing, and just as they kind of cut down with the numbers that they were looking at, and to make that team, I never expected it, to be quite honest. And I actually ran into Gino. It's been recent, probably within the last 5 years, just talking with him on the recruiting trail. But it had been so long since that year, because it was his very first year coaching an Olympic team. So when I make this festival, we didn't do very well, but it was a great experience down in San Antonio. So when I went up and I introduced myself, I'm like, hey, I was one of your players on this festival. He immediately, Krista, he had remembered what year of that team, and he listed the entire roster. And I'm like, how do you remember out of all these teams he's always ever coached? He goes, well, it was my first year. We didn't win. I never thought I was going to get another Olympic coaching job again, and that was kind of the start of his career, making his big name as well. So yeah, it was just a fun group. And like I said, we didn't play particularly well, but it was an incredible experience, and so thankful that I had an opportunity to be a part of it.
So you were the 31st overall draft pick in the 1998 draft for the WNBA. With the Cleveland Rockers, you ended up, 2001 Eastern Conference Championship team. Can you talk about your WNBA experience?
I want to go back to June and Mike just to make sure. I think so many people understand we all, with our successes along the way, are here because of the people around us and supporting us. And my family has been always my glue and believing what's possible. But then when, I signed with June and Mike at Boise, professional basketball didn't exist in the States yet. The WNBA did not exist. And so I was just going to college to win some championships, get my degree. And then I think it was heading into my senior year where Mike actually was having a conversation telling me about professional opportunities overseas. I'm like, really? You could do that? I thought I was just going to graduate with criminal justice, go in the FBI. There you go. And I'm like, that sounds like fun. So long story short, I had an injury that I had to recover from. So I ended up, the time-wise, June and Mike got me an agent over from Australia. So I ended up playing my first 2 years in Australia. The second year is when the WNBA actually started. June had basically talked about a game of mine to the Utah Starzz. So that's kind of like my foot in the door where I got that tryout and was able to get drafted by them. About a year and a half in, the Utah Starzz weren't super successful. We had a coaching change. Frank Layden actually ended up retiring. I ended up getting cut about around early July. And fortunately, the Cleveland Rockers, not fortunately to Susie, because she ended up being one of my best friends on the Cleveland Rockers team, but she had a foot injury, so I got picked up by them, and that's how ultimately I ended up with Dan Hughes and the Cleveland Rockers. And when he took over and just worked on culture change and building a united team, I'm like, my WNBA experience is very similar to college. I got to finish 4 years with a team that felt like team first mentality, and we're going to defend, we're going to support each other. We had marquee players. We had Marilekia Jones. We had Susie McConnell-Serio. We had incredible players on our team, but my experience in the WNBA was unbelievable. Our team was so good, so fun, so relentless, and it all started with Dan Hughes. He was a really special coach.
Getting to meet Dan Hughes this last year for me was just incredible. And hearing the stories about him talking about, I'm leaving the arena and someone is shooting, and it's Tricia. She's down there just getting up shots and talking about your work ethic. And such a personable guy. I mean, how great is that? He comes to Boise to support you and is all in Montana State gear. I thought that was just really special. Do you have moments where there might be like a Danism that enters the way you coach? Do you find yourself saying something that he would say to you or coaching a certain style that you learned from him?
Oh, all the time. I talked about not being able to pick up the phone and calling June, but Dan is my first phone call. And, when I had a chance to invite him to come to Bozeman last summer, we knew we had a really special group and just wanted to kind of get his feedback. And so full circle here, he actually came and watched one of my first practices 20 years ago when I first took over this job. And I just asked him to come watch the practice to give me some feedback on how I'm running them. The first thing he talked about was making sure we had enough competitors in practice. And he said, your practices are great, they're running great, but you win your championships in practice. So I say that all the time with how competitive we have recruited. We recruit kids that I have to blow the whistle very, very quickly. And he always said, play hard, play smart. And so I think those things come in to play as well. I think our kids get bored when I like the simplicity of the game. We don't need flash. We need practice and predictable. But I think so much of that comes from Dan. The defensive end comes from Dan. But there's certain terminologies as well. But at the end of the day, he also, I don't know if it's the same wording, but it might be the same style, is he allows his players to lead. Like watching him when he was with the Seattle Storm, he had a Sue Bird on his team who's as good as any coach, right? So her IQ and her wisdom, he would default so heavily so many times to letting her run a huddle or asking for her input. And so we really empower our student athletes to lead here as well. What an incredible mentor.
So you talk about these mentors, June Daugherty, Dan Hughes. Tricia, was it always something that was in you to coach? Was this a drive that once my playing days are done, you talk about the criminology and wanting to go into the FBI. What drew you to coaching?
Two people. I guess Mike actually mentioned to me one time that I should consider coaching. I think if you look at Mike and June's resume of kids that they have coached, many of them have gone into coaching. But then Trish Stevens, who took over when June got the job at University of Washington, when Trish took over at Boise State, she actually reached out to me probably my second or third year in the league in the WNBA, because I would do my training in Boise in my off seasons. Since we were playing during the summer, I was training there. That's kind of where my regimen was. And she said, you could coach during the school year and work out with the team and develop the players, because at the time your third assistant didn't need to go out recruiting. I was like, well, that sounds fun. It's like fun. So I actually did that for 2 years. And during that time, that's how I met my husband, because Trish did a home visit with my sister-in-law, who we had signed there, and came back and said she had the perfect husband for me, which I didn't know if that would be professional. She's like, oh, it'll be fine. And we were married 10 months later. So she knew exactly. But that second year, I just felt really torn that I was trying to be a coach. I was trying to be a wife. I was trying to still finish my playing career. And so I told Trish, I wanted to focus on finishing my playing career. So I only coached those 2 years at Boise, but that's really how I got into coaching, was Trish Stevens asking, Mike kind of putting it on my radar. But it was kind of like doors that open. People bring up something to your plate. You just kind of consider it. You pray about it. And I think God's known this a lot better than I have, what was best for me. So I just kind of follow what doors are opening. And then kind of towards the tail end of my playing career, Reagan Peebley reached out from the Utah State team. She was just starting the program up from not having a program for 16 years. Mm-hmm. But she told me I wouldn't be able to play if I took the job. So, because I would have to recruit, I would need to be a little bit more responsibilities on my plate. And so that's when Todd, my husband, and I prayed about that decision. It seemed the right time to retire.
So just going back just a little bit on your Australia years, I covered that too fast with your professional career. Was Todd with you during those years that you played in
No.
Australia, or was that prior?
Yeah, that was all prior. If I didn't have family back home, I could have ended up in Australia because I loved my experience there too. My first year was down in Launceston, Tasmania. That was the best of my experiences. The second year up in Brisbane was fine. You know, just the organization in Launceston was like first class. They really took care of you. Had some amazing friends there. But I met Todd when I was coaching at Boise State when we signed Jenny. So I kind of met him during the middle of my WNBA career, towards the tail end of my WNBA career. So if you see any playing cards, I think my first year it says Bader. And then like the last 2 years, maybe it says Bader Binford on it.
So in 2005, you're named the 11th head coach for Montana State. At the time, were you looking to lay down those foundational roots, or were you like, I'm going to see where this goes? Were there other options for you, or did you have this connection to Montana State where you're like, no, I just feel like this is where I'm supposed to be?
Well, I will start with our parents have raised us to, you know, we're going to have work ethic, and we're going to put our roots in and dig our roots in. And what was intriguing about Montana State was I had come from Utah State where we built a foundation. So I got to be a part of building something up with some pieces. So I felt like I had that ability to do that here since they had been through so many coaches in such little time. I just felt like the kids needed stability in that. And I felt like we could do that. I also, when I approached Reagan about the job when it came open, because I had remembered flying into Bozeman, right? You fly in, you fly out. You don't see a lot of the town when you're playing. I got to go to Bagel Works. I got to go to the gym. I knew that they had great crowds. They had been successful. I knew I had all the components of being successful. It was more of like, Reagan, what do you think? She goes, Trish, Todd is Bozeman, you know, like, so we went for it. And I think we planned on being here for some time, you know, like I've never been one to think about jumping. I'm like, when I'm in, I'm in. I'm like, that's why I kept going back to Boise. I'm like, Carbondale forever, Boise forever. And those have been my two places. And Montana, Bozeman has become Todd and I's place with our family. And this is our home. We never expected to think this long term, but I do think our initial vision was, yeah, let's get this to a place where we can compete for championships. We knew it was possible. We felt like we had a lot of things in place, but never would I even guess what a President Cruzado would do, a Leon Costello would do. We have been blessed beyond measure here. This community, how they've supported us and welcomed us. It's been an unbelievable ride. And so now we got to take the next step.
So you're entering your 21st year. You haven't had a losing season in 18 years. You won your 8th Big Sky regular title, 4th tournament crown. There is no question that you have turned the tables at Montana State and not only taken Montana State to new heights, but put them on the map as one of the prominent programs in the country. I'm entering my 12th year of calling TV, which is crazy. And so I've had a courtside seat to watch you. But I want to go back and revisit some of these years, specifically my first year that I came into contact with you. It was 2014, 2015 when Montana had the last host. So that was before we embarked on the neutral site tournament. And so I remember coming to your shoot around and watching you. And I remember thinking, Jasmine Hamas is a player. Wow, watch out, Big Sky, because she will be there. You ended up losing to Sac State, which Sac State had a pretty good team that year. Maran Johnson, Fantasia Hilliard. That was a pretty good Sac State team. But I look at the growth from 2014 to 2015 to year 2015 and 16 years. That was just huge. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, I need to credit all of my assistants along the way. You know, you think about bringing in great kids, it takes great coaches. And even from the early years, you know, we could go through the Amy Starzz of the world, the Mandy Closes of the world. I'm like Katie Mobley, you know, you've got Nate Harris was a big part of kind of these steps. Julian Asibe, I'm like, we could go through that gamut. My current staff right now, I feel like we're I shouldn't say well-oiled because we're always constantly growing, but the experience around me is absolutely tremendous. I got two people on either side that could be a head coach anywhere with their experience. And then Devin Perez is as good as anybody on player development. But when you look at the quality of players that Sonny, as our recruiting coordinator, has led us to, and then Ryan's experience in the league on our staff now, that is a big part of it as well. So great coaches build great kids. Unlike we are in this business, our why is to mentor and help young people grow on and off the court. And I feel like my staffs have been about character first. So I'm really proud of the coaches that have represented this program. I'm really proud of the student athletes that have come through this program and the steps that they have helped this program take. I'm like, when you're talking about Jasmine's years and Peyton's years and Fallon Free, all those kids on the wall, they're not on the wall without being a part of great teams. And so our teams have constantly been about 4 or 5 kids in double figures and defending as a group. And it's been really special to see those steps be taken and just an honor of being a part of those journeys.
So the 2016-2017 year, we're in Reno. You get your redemption against Idaho State. I'm going to try to not dive into some of these details because honestly, some of these games jumble together now that I've been doing this for as long as I have. Peyton Ferris, Riley Norgard really put that team on their back. And that was really impressive and an incredible run. Can you talk about that team and what it was like to cut down those nets in Reno?
Yeah, the first year we won the league was the first year it went neutral sites.
I know. I scooted over that. I scooted over that year, but I do want to say that was really brutal travel. You had to go from Greeley to Grand Forks to Reno. Do you remember that?
It was. It kind of goes through like that class. You're heartbroken for them, but the resiliency of that experience for Peyton and Riley, it was. Right. They were not going to let anything other than playing in the NCAA tournament. Unlike that, they willed that to happen, and it was not easy. No year is, and we constantly tell kids in the tournament, going into tournament, there's going to be that grind game where you're just going to have to do whatever it takes. And that year, even though I'm like they willed it, we had. Hannah Caudell had been in the hospital for a week prior. We had Marguerite starting at the point. Hannah comes back. We get a triangle and 2 in our first game on Peyton and Riley, and Hannah has to drain like 7 threes running over to the track. She was not feeling well. The next game, I think Anna Kalai has to hit like a buzzer beater, and then the championship with Idaho State, Peyton and Riley just kind of put the team on their shoulders. There was one possession, I think, where it was maybe a minute and a half to go, 2 minutes, and Riley's bringing it up in transition, and you're like, take time off the clock, but she's feeling it. They're there to win it, and she just lets it fly. I'm like, what are you doing? She drains the 3. I'm like, that's I guess what they're doing, and she's flying out of bounds, getting us extra possessions, and Peyton being one of the toughest, grittiest players I've ever coached. It was just, it was fun to watch. I'm like, it's one of the reasons why you don't forget these kinds of memories. I'm like, they're just incredible kids.
That was a really good Idaho State team too. I think about Grace Kenyon, Sailor Grandin, Steffi Orrs. I mean, it was really competitive, and Stephen Solesky has grown and always had his Idaho State team ready for that neutral site tournament. So it was almost a little bit of redemption against him though, from the year before too, when you get knocked off.
Gosh, I don't know if it's redemption. I think it's just we've had some great battles throughout the years. So I get to joke with Ryan about him because he was halfway on the other end with some of these, like they're kind of big time shot the year before. And we've had Delaney on her home floor hitting a 3. And, when you get in sports, you have to be humble enough to know that you're going to be on both sides of it. And you want to be gracious when you win, but you also want to be hungry when you lose. And, congrats to like those teams that do get their kids ready. Seton is an incredible coach, and those kids always will be.
I want to go back to that Bobcat Grizz game here in Missoula where you won in overtime, where Peyton Ferris just kind of took over the game in front of a really rowdy Lady Grizz crowd. But that was certainly talking about the play of Peyton Ferris, I've had her on my show. She is just a force. and one of those, like you said, gritty kids that just really gets after it.
Well, when we talk about gritty, I'm like, I don't know how many surgeries she had before she even got to us, right? So
Right.
the young lady does everything. Dirt bikes, out with horses, anything off the court, can do anything. Literally has played every position. I think when we signed her as a guard. She finished as a forward. I use Peyton Ferris's example with recruits when I talk about our selfless core value of this program, because it really, when we started winning our championships, the last 10 years, it started with Peyton Ferris. I'm like, Peyton was a kid that came off the bench for us as a junior that was good enough to start, but she just knew it worked. And so nobody could complain about it because it just worked. And she was the top reserve in the conference. And then the next year, she was the MVP. And so when we talk to kids, we're like, we look for kids that are whatever we need type of kids. We don't look for whatever I need. And when you get that component solved, you can look in the mirror and know that you're not going to get in your own way. Most nights we lose because of ourselves, not our opponent. And when you win, you want to win because of playing for each other as a team. And Peyton Ferris has been like that selfless kid since the day I've met her. And anywhere I needed to put her on the floor, she was willing to do, she was able to do. And she was the first kid in the gym and the last to leave. And she loves the game of basketball, so passionate. So for her to go in there and knowing the rivalry, knowing what's at stake, I know Montana recruited her as well. She was the best in the state. Why we both really wanted her. We were just really fortunate she chose us because she literally could take over a game.
Boy, there's some other great names we need to mention when we talk about that 2016-2017 year. Delaney Junkemeyer, Hannah Caudell, Blair Braxton, Oleana Squires, Madeline Smith. These are all names that are staples with the Montana State program. And, it's interesting. You talk about these last 10 years and all the success you had. There really wasn't any downtime because you just reloaded. And so it was just another group of exceptional play. The 2019-2020 year was really tough, Trish, when I think about how it all ended in Boise with the COVID. And I look at that team and I still think, what if? But I don't want to look at it that way because they really accomplished a lot. Fallon Frigi, I think one of the greatest players in the Big Sky. I think just, MVP, but high caliber. Can you talk a little bit about that team too, that I've coined as the dream team?
Yeah, we got asked a lot about that team last year. Like there was a lot of comparing that team to last year's team, and they were different teams, but both incredibly special in their own right, and both will be Hall of Fame teams, no doubt. But that year when Fallon chose us, she had done an official visit prior to choosing North Dakota, and so to full circle get her for her last year. At that time, when you transferred, you had to sit a year. And so she waited all that time to sit. And then we had this team come together. I just remember her pressing early on because she only had the 1 year to get this right. And we got to the point where we just wanted her to let go and just enjoy the game of basketball. And once she did that, yeah, she took off, we took off. We just had the pieces and we had all this experience around, with our senior class. But then you bring in this young class with Darian, Cola, and Maddie and let them be freshmen and just compete hard. And you let the experience lead. What we're really thankful for, Krista, is the fact that we got to win our championship on our home floor. It was against the Grizz, so it was our biggest crowd we had. And so we did get to have that moment with our community. We didn't get to play in the championship, and that will be one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, but with both Leon and I in there. I'm like, to this day, it's still somewhat of a shock to have the conversation of not getting to see what that team was capable of doing. But Fallon was the only kid on that team really that didn't get to have an NCAA experience, but she'd be the first to tell you it was worth it. And because the journey for us, when we talk about seasons and we talk about recruiting, the 30 seconds that when you walk up and you cut that net and you go down, I guess that that enjoyment, that's probably 30 minutes or so. But if the 7 months leading up to that aren't as amazing, then that 30 minutes isn't worth it. And we're grateful that the 7 months was pretty special. So nobody can take that piece away from that team. And they were as good as what we've seen in the Big Sky. They were really, really special.
Well, enter Darian White onto the scene. And boy, what a presence and what a career she had for you. And I always think about you with coaching point guards as an extension. You know, your point guard is an extension of you. And you've obviously coached some great ones, but Darian White was just one of those special players that comes along not very often. And when you talk about a Darian White or you talk about an Esmeralda Morales and how are you going to fill those shoes, I don't think you can replace kids like that. You just can't. You have to build and find something different. But can you talk about Darian and that 2021-2022 year? Cola had such a great year that year. And Oleana, can you talk just a little bit about that championship year?
Well, yeah. So when she got there during the summer, I'm like, we had 5 seniors returning that had been starting. So,
right.
So there was that, but by the time we finished the summer, everybody knew Darian needed to start for us. I'm like, she was not a leader by her words. She just led by the way she competed. And so she didn't need to necessarily lead. She needed to establish tempo and defend like she defended. And she won them all over because she competed so fearlessly and so aggressively throughout the summer. And she was so consistent. I'm like, the part about Darian that people don't talk about enough was how consistent she was as a freshman. If you look at her percentages, her assist to turnover ratio, she did have upperclassmen where she didn't have to think other things. They got to take those things for her because we had experience around her. But she was that really important piece. And it really, I also want to credit Oleana Squires because Ole was playing the point and she knew she would have to play some too if we were going to maximize the gifts of this team. And so we talk about that a lot of, where do we need to be able to adapt, not compromise, but bring out somebody else's. I think for Ole to play some too and know that was going to be the best for us. I thought that was super selfless to be on board for that and just get everybody being a champion in the role. But Darian was so consistent and steady every single game. I think I remember her only having one not great game ever in her entire career.
Well, I'll tell you, as a freshman, I thought she had a Big Sky Conference MVP caliber type of season. I know Fallon should go to Fallon, but I thought, wow, I mean, you've got this freshman that comes in here. And I did think, how is this going to work? Because they are loaded. And how does a freshman come in and just gel? And really, she just made everyone around her better.
Yeah, she just she could pick you apart with the pass, and she really could establish your identity 94 feet. But you probably would have loved the behind the scenes conversation with the staff on who to even put up for MVP because her stats were so good. And at the end of the day, Fallon Freegee was circled on every single scatter report. And Darian went on to obviously get her tournament MVP and prove, her level of impact. But it's a nice challenge when you have to talk about multiple kids as far as their impact on your team and how consistent they had been.
So Darian White solidifies herself in the record books. She's just a winner. You're now established as the top of the Big Sky at this point. Every year, Montana State is in the conversation. And you have, I'm breezing through some of these years because I could keep you on here for a couple hours. I got to move along. I mean, talking about all these championships, but 2024 to 2025, you get a player like Esmeralda Morales. And can you talk a little bit about how that all came about and how you ended up with her on your team?
Well, as soon as we saw her in the portal, we had already circled what we would be looking for as far as what kind of player, right? So we knew some kids were coming off of injury that were coming back. We knew that defensively, we were going to be at a very high level. We were able to defend with very few numbers the previous year. We had a really elite freshman class coming in, but we needed somebody that we could put the ball in their hands. When Darian had graduated, Darian was that kid, the end of the quarter, the under 10, she was able to
Right.
do those things. And we didn't have that piece necessarily. We had been kind of trying to do it as a group. So looking for that kind of dynamic player when Esme came in, you think about this new era of transfer portal and being able to recruit a kid that was in your league. The challenges of that, I wouldn't say I love that. It is the new reality, but the benefits of going after a kid that's transferring that you're more familiar with does give you a little bit more information of confident of what they bring to the table, because there are a lot of surprises with the transfer portal. That's why we are creatures of 4-year kids, but there are those pieces that make a lot of sense. Riley Norgard is a kid that made a lot of sense. Fallon Freegee for the piece we were looking for, and Esme was absolutely a home run. And in addition to that, Krista, I will tell you, she was beyond the home run. I never could have expected the level of leadership and composure that she brought to the table, her IQ for the game. When she got here and you would teach one thing, she would pick it up immediately the first time. And her ability to, very different styles than Darian. Darian had won over the experience and upperclassmen by just the way she competed. Esme kind of won them over by the summer by her level of relationship and just taking people under her wings and not forcing the issue. She had a calmness about her. Everything that we needed for the pieces we had, she brought to the table. She is just an incredible kid. She is crushing it overseas. She needs to get a chance in the WNBA. For the things that I've seen in her game, she is just absolutely special, the way she can score the ball, but the level that she plays at and the things that she sees, her IQ for the game as well. I'm hoping she plays for quite some time because she's so much fun to watch. We love obviously watching her, but yeah, she's the real deal.
And you talk about Bobcats that are in the pro ranks. Esmeralda is in Chile right now. And I hope to see that she develops and grows and gets her shot in the WNBA. Taylor Jansen, Spain. Oleana Squires is Czech Republic. And I think that's also been pretty exciting to see. I ran into Oleana here in Missoula last summer having lunch with Mackenzie Johnston, and the two of them battling against each other, and now they're the best of friends. And I just thought to myself, it all kind of came full circle because there's so much more that connects us. And you have so much more in common that you never can really articulate while you're battling, right? We know Bobcat Grizz is the epitome of rivalry. And I look at that now, even with Blythe Thomas Hintz. Blythe and I, ooh, man, we went after each other. But I enjoy her so much, and I lean on her, and I message with her. She gives me all the Bobcat facts. And it's going to be really neat to see Grace play. I'm really excited for that. Yeah. Obviously, really strong family lineage when you look at Brooke and you look at Jasmine. I think that just kind of makes sense, and I'm excited for her. Coach Binford, I want to ask you a question about how it is to coach we've seen so much change in the last 10 years in women's college basketball, and the transfer portal is definitely here to stay. You have created a championship caliber program where every year expectations are set. That's amazing, but there's also pressure with that. How do you balance having to build a team every single year when you got moving parts? Can you talk a little bit about those challenges?
Well, yeah. I think first of all, the kids we are recruiting, they know that pressure is on as well. It's the expectation. I don't know if we're going to interpret it as pressure. It's just now that it's the expectation, it's where you're at. And there's a responsibility with that. So kids understand when they come into this program, the expectation is to be a competitive team every time we step on the floor. And the responsibility is you're going to get everybody's best game. So there are no practices that you just get to go through the motions. So we like that challenge. I'm like, we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't take ownership in that, right? So it starts with our coaching staff. We know that the landscape is evolving, and it's not on I shouldn't say stable ground, but it's on ground that's shifting a little bit consistently. So we have to be able to try to look a year out, 2 year out, and be ready to adjust to the things we need to adjust to. One of the things that I will say for us that I feel gives us a little bit of stability in the unstable times is the fact that we do play a deep roster. So, for kids to choose us, opportunity to play, I'm like, we're gonna play a lot of kids because of our style of play. So we invest in our kids, we value and we maximize what we have. So we're hoping that keeps kids here a little bit longer, if not until they get that degree in hand. That's ultimately our number one goal, and that will never change. We'll continue to try to get 4-year kids, and we'll continue to make sure we fill the holes or pieces that we need as best as we can.
I've watched you rely on that depth, and I do see two real strengths to you solidifying yourself year after year of being in the conversation is that depth. It's keeping those fresh legs, right? Because you are such a defensive minded coach. And that's one thing that I've really admired. I played for a defensive minded coach. It was a struggle at times playing for Robin Selvig, high expectations on the defensive end. But what I've noticed is it helps you weather those lulls on the offensive end. Right? I mean, if you just play tough defense all the time, you're going to be in games. And that's one thing I see with this roster. From this year's team that you have, it's real easy to look and think, wow, there's a lot of gaps. Coach Binford's got to fill a lot of gaps. Ella Johnson and Izzy Bunyan had really great years and have had solid minutes for you. When I look at those two kids, and then I look at an Addie Harris and a Taylor Cherrick, those two freshmen are phenomenal. They're not freshmen anymore, but they've had a lot of minutes and had a lot of success last year. You have a core nucleus that's returning. You do have a lot of youth, but can you talk about that nucleus that's returning?
Yeah, I mean, we are young, Krista. We have 0 seniors on this team. There's the days where you're like, who's going to lead, right? So I think what we've done is we've empowered the team to lead. We do a lot of team stuff where we're kind of pulling that out because Taylor Cherrick's leadership style is very different than Dylan Phillips' leadership style. And, what our experience, what we rely on from that junior class that you mentioned, and that does include Brooke Berry, Dylan's still kind of working herself back. But those 4 are definitely challenged to what does the standard need to look like by drill work, by communication, and all those sorts of things. Our underclassmen, the Tayleys and the Addies and the Tegans, that sophomore class, but Taylor and Addie, you will, from the experience that they got last year, they're going to lead by how we're supposed to compete on both ends of the floor every possession. And then you get these newcomers, our twins, our freshman class. Krista, we have an entire team of gym rats. So even though we're young and we're going to make a lot of mistakes early, I have been constantly communicating. I'd rather you make mistakes going hard and being assertive and letting us play through those mistakes, and we'll get those things on film to solve, versus being unsure, going halfway, doing it as at the effort it needs to go to. This team, we will go down firing on all cylinders because of how hard we play. And this class is going to be really fun to watch and see how they grow each game throughout the season, because they will be in the gym. There is no doubt about that. If anything, I'm going to have to take the keys or the code away so they can't get into the gym, because they're constantly in the gym.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, you have not shied away from loading up your schedule. So when I take a look at what you've got this year, you face 8 teams that have won more than 20 or more games. This Portland team finished 31-5, WCC champions. I like what you said about iron sharpens iron. I read everything that Tom Schultz writes, but I thought that was a really clever way to describe this schedule, because you are relentless. You are going to put them in situations that will hopefully bode well for when you're trying to make a championship run in Boise.
Well, the critics will always say, are you nervous about the confidence? You could lose confidence with a young team. I'm like, if you've met our kids, there is no concern about that. So our job is to find a way to be the best version of ourselves possible. And this is how you do it. So those games, Ryan Johnson does our preseason scheduling. I will tell you, last year we were not happy with the seed that we got. We felt like, we had 30 wins. We had some good wins, but we didn't have those wins in that top 50 or below, right? So that 25 net to 50 net, that's where, those seeds don't become on somebody's neutral site. At least that's my interpretation. I never got the full answer on that. So we will constantly continue to compete and see what we can do as a program. And if we do get the opportunity, if we got that opportunity, we have at least put the preseason schedule together to prepare us for a very competitive conference race. This conference is very up for grabs as much as any year. You've got so many different rosters right now, some new coaches. So it's going to be an exciting season for the Big Sky Conference. But our team will be battle tested, and we will be ready for the beginning of conference, at least knowing where we need to work as a program, because we will get exposed in every area with this schedule, but we're going to be better for it.
Coach Binford, one thing that I've really admired, I have to go back to last year's Bobcat Grizz in Bozeman, close to 4,200 fans. One of the best women's basketball environments I've been in my TV calling years. And I looked around and I, saw a lot of blue and gold, and that is a credit to you, because that is what it is to build a program. Your fans have really got behind your program. And when I look at your attendance and how the trajectory was just on the rise, 3,300 fans at your senior night. I mean, it's really incredible to see the Bozeman community get behind your program. Can you talk just a little bit about that relationship with the community?
Well, it's the reason why we're going on 21 years here, Krista. Our leadership has been incredible. Our support has been really special. This community has embraced my entire family. Our son's is going to school here. Our daughter is going to go to school here. My husband has his business here. But the community, they show up for really fun basketball or fun sports in general to watch. If you look at how they show up for volleyball, men's basketball, football, you name it, our track teams, this community loves their sports. And why wouldn't they? Our kids are really, really fun to watch. The way they compete, the way they put every single effort into every single possession. This team is no different. If anything, this team might even be more relentless, which is hard to fathom. But this community, it's one of the reasons why, I guess 20 plus years ago, we saw something in this community, because I got experiences as a player. So did you. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Bozeman is growing, and we know the value of investing in our community, because our community gives us so much in return.
We haven't talked a lot about your husband, Todd, your daughter, Brooklyn, your son, Justin, the balance of running a program and also being a mom and a wife. Can you talk just a little bit about your family and what that's been like to have a job that takes you away a lot? You are traveling and it's year round, but I feel like your family is so much a part of this. I mean, I feel like I see them at your games. I think back to the memory when you told me when Brooklyn came up and asked you for money for concessions. And it's like, wait, where's your dad? I'm like coaching right now. I love that. It was so great. But can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, and my son threw keys out onto the court once with a suspicious officiating call. So there's that.
Oh, boy.
He was probably 2, so he knew nothing about the call.
Oh, boy.
Well, first of all, it starts with Todd. When we were looking at this job, everything we do together with our decisions. We pray that this is the right decision and what's best for our family. But the first 4 years here before Justin was in school, Todd made the sacrifice to stay home so he and Justin could travel with us. We made the decision we weren't going to separate the two. If we were going to do this well, this had to become our family. And so Justin kind of grew up opening the doors for our student athletes. And Brooklyn grew up these student athletes being her role models, to be quite honest. They're at our house. Our family travels as much as they can. Once the kids were in school, it became more of the holiday tournaments and the Big Sky tournaments. But Todd has changed tires. He's helped move furniture. He's on call as much as anybody else. And it's just an amazing way to do life together. I don't know how how else to do this if we're not going to balance my husband being a parent. Our student athletes are very understanding as well. They, with sometimes I tweak schedules so I can make a game of our own kids, and so those things have been really cool to see our kids interacting, and it's been awesome.
Your daughter makes a verbal commitment to Montana State for volleyball. And one thing that I noticed, obviously, I was so excited for her, but to watch all of your players congratulate her, just like she's a part of the family, you can just tell. I mean, generation after generation are coming in and congratulating Brooklyn. You can see that they feel like they're part mom and part sister. There is a real genuineness to that with how you have integrated and made your family, your girls that you coach, as well as your assistant coaches and your own family.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the first thing we look for in student athletes is the character, right? You want people that are going to be great examples in your community. They're their role models. And you always think, well, there's a responsibility with that platform and being a role model. And, we've gotten to see that firsthand of the example that they've got to set for our kids. And I do have to bring up Lindsay Hine, because Lindsay was a kid that had to go medical. And so she would be the manager and running the scorer's table. And she and Brooklyn have done life these last 2 years together on that sideline so much. She was maybe one of the greatest mentors of some of this full circle moment for Brooklyn. She came to watch Brooklyn at her volleyball game down in Missoula, 'cause she's over there for law school. And she's just one example. All of our student athletes have impacted both of our kids in so many ways. But, they are their siblings. Like I said, we have the kids over. We do so much together. It's hard to separate the two when it's so much out of your day and your time. And we want to love what we're doing. And this certainly makes it worth everybody's while, I think, for even our student athletes to see that you can do this and still be a parent and a wife and all those things for their next steps and their futures down the road as well.
Well, Coach Binford, this has been such a great interview. I could keep talking to you, but I realize you have to go run a practice and run a program. I do want to give you an absolute shout out. I'm in my 12th year of TV, and outside of Robin Selvig, you've just been such a true mentor, and you've been a champion of mine and getting behind the Big Sky Conference and trying to bring awareness and notoriety to all these kids that work so hard. And I want to thank you for welcoming me down in Bozeman, welcoming this Lady Grizz, right? Because a lot of my experiences are through the Montana lens, but it allows me to step outside of that and have so much respect for what you've built. I really want to thank you, because it's a tremendous honor you'd come on the show to talk about all these pieces, but also just everything you've done for me.
Well, Krista, I am very grateful in return. We love what you're doing. I'm so thankful that you put a spotlight on this amazing conference, and your lens is incredible. Unlike the history that you know of this conference and the fact that you're bringing awareness to such great things about this conference, we appreciate it. And we love the rivalry, and I appreciate what you do. So thanks for the kind words.
Thank you for joining me on my show today.
Absolutely.
Today's show is brought to you by Vertical Raise, your premier online fundraising platform. A huge thank you to Peter Hamill, the Montana rep for Vertical Raise. There is a lot of competition in the fundraising space, all with good intentions. However, there are some real tangible differences now, having worked with multiple platforms, being a high school parent at Hellgate. Ease of use and a user-friendly interface are two differences with Vertical Raise compared to competing products. A clear, concise message with the best technology interface. To learn more about Vertical Raise, please visit verticalraise406.com. I am so excited to be joined today by Carla Taylor, otherwise known as CT, around the Big Sky Conference, former Weber State athlete, and that she not only played hoops, she also competed in track and field from 1980 to 1984. She was one of the youngest D1 coaches in the nation, taking the reins at Weber State at the age of 26, where she led for 23 seasons. CT turned her alma mater into a Big Sky contender, 2 titles, 2 NCAA tournament trips, and now she takes her very deserving place in the 2025 Weber State Athletics Hall of Fame. CT, it is an honor to welcome you into my show.
Oh, Krista, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to talk hoops with you and happy to be here.
Well, before we get started in hearing your opinion on the women's preseason teams and polls, You have quite the resume, but it just appears that retirement is not for you. You continue to call games, call color for Weber State women, and you're making incredible art. Can you tell our listeners about what your post-coaching days look like?
Just kind of happened by chance. My sister wanted some recycled metal art, yard art, and I had a friend that welds, and I asked him if he'd weld it. And he said, well, you can weld it. And I said, I don't know how to weld. And he took me in, just showed me how, and I started messing with it, and then kind of got into it and enjoyed it, and finally bought my own welder and put it in my studio, aka my garage, and just started making recycled metal art. And it's just progressed to a bigger and bigger thing. And now I started out going to like a farmer's market, and then there had Harvest Moon and a Christmas sale. And then it kind of got, I don't know what people want to buy. So then I just started getting commission orders, and I've been doing that for 6 years now.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm one of those commission orders because
Yes, you are.
a piece of art is in my parents' living room and it will never go outside where it was intended to go. But my mom keeps it in the very center of the living room because she loves it so much.
It's been fun, and it kind of keeps me out of trouble. And it's all recycled metal that I go out to Blooms and pick with my hard hat on, my bucket, and my gloves, and find all these different pieces of metal and then weld them together and make kind of cool stuff.
So are you also calling games this year?
Yes.
Okay.
There, I know. Paul Grua just waiting to get the call, but I'm sure, he hasn't told me I'm fired yet. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing the play-by-play color. At first, I was intimidated by it. Just like, I'm not a journalist major or into this type of thing, but it really is fun because on air as the color person, you're really just talking hoops or talking about the play that just happened. So I would hope that I know a little bit, and I think I throw in a little bit of fun in it and a little bit of color, as you could say.
It's a great way to stay connected. I know that that's what I love too, is being connected to the programs that really built me up and that I was a part of in the Big Sky. But it's a lot harder than it looks. I don't think people understand getting on the air and timing it and having to come up with names and scenarios. It's not a walk in the park, CT.
No, it really is hard. And you say names. The names now, there's not just Taylor Smith's or the normal Annie, Jane, whatever. And there's so many foreign athletes. I mean, you really have to do a little bit of homework just to learn how to pronounce their names. And you want to do it justice because those away teams' parents are watching.
Well, I want to put it out into the universe that I think D Event Center is by far the most beautiful arena in the Big Sky Conference. I have some fond memories of coming down there, but not so fond my senior year in 2000 losing to UCT. But a lot of battles that I had as a player against you. And boy, you just put out some really tough teams.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the University of Montana Grizz, the Lady Grizz, I think loved the D Event Center as much as we love the D Event Center because every team that came in there played well. And I remember Shannon Swain, coming in and having 40 points. And I mean, it's a great gym, and it's a shooter's gym because there's the depth perception. And when you get in big arenas, sometimes your depth perception for shooting is hard. Right. But the D Event Center is small enough, and it's beautiful, and it's close enough that I think people walk in there and go, nice, this is a great gym.
I have to tell one story. So when we were coming down to play you my senior season, we all had to separate into cars. Nobody wanted to be in Rob Selvig's car because he's known to not be a very good driver. I mean, how many trips has he made to Ogden where he has
a million?
I'm in his car, and I just want to cue everyone. He's listening to Mariah Carey. I mean, that's what's playing. I'll never forget this. And all of a sudden, we're going off a curb and over into the shrubs coming into the arena. Well, how do I even get into this place? And it's like, visiting team, enter here. And we went all the way over and had a shrub hanging off the front of the town car as we went into the event center.
Yeah, and come on, you just go to the back and go down the tunnel, right?
I think he loses it before games.
Oh, he does.
You've probably seen it.
Probably one of the best stories I'll ever. Towards the end of my career, we would talk, and I think he was so nervous about the outcome. And at that point, I started to get it. It's like you couldn't even enjoy the game. You just wanted to know what the outcome was. Are we going to win or are we going to lose? Because you're so pent up.
Right.
And I thought I was bad, but I don't think anybody compares to Rob. He was, and he'd give me one of his lifesavers or whatever, and we'd stand and talk. And I felt that towards the end of my career, just the pressure to win and wanting to know the outcome of the game before it even started.
I think you're all wired the same. I think a lot of you coaches are very similar in how you're wired. Okay, well, CT, I want to talk about these preseason teams and the polls. But first, before we even get into it, there's just been so much movement with the transfer portal. It's part of the trajectory of women's basketball. It's not going anywhere. But now the Big Sky Conference seems to be a league where we're building up players and then they move on. A couple of the prominent players, Taylor Smith, just really hard for Gentile Jackson to lose a player like that to Gonzaga. Mara Dykstra, Michigan State, Taylor Feldman, Purdue, Lexi Deaton, Colorado State. These are just a few of the names, but I want to hear from your opinion, being a coach, like how difficult is that to now have to re-recruit your own roster every single year, knowing that you could lose these players that you develop?
You know what? I am so old school, as many of the coaches that coached during my time were. I mean, when you recruited a player, you recruit them and you're committed to developing them and you expect the same commitment back. So I don't even know. I know I couldn't handle the transfer portal as a coach because you put your heart and soul into developing them and helping them be successful, and then your team being successful. And then those good players might be with you a year or two, and then they're shopping for a bigger, better school. They think that they may be just going to go there and be a role player when they could really help your program. So it would be difficult for me. It's almost like the mid-majors are becoming almost like a junior college. You might get them 1 or 2 years and then they're going on. So I don't know how you even recruit unless you just assume you recruit for every position in case they do leave. It's sad to me.
Well, you look at Coach Binford, she's benefited and she's also lost. So she was able to get Esmeralda Morales out of the transfer portal last year. They led Montana State to the NCAA tournament. She comes back this year and she's again voted at the very top. Montana State's voted at the top for media and coaches. And it's interesting because she did lose Mara Dykstra. And that's a big part of the team that has moved on. But when I look at her team, she still returns Izzy Bunyan, Ella Johnson, Taylor Cherrick made the all-conference preseason team, Addie Harris. What do you think she's doing up there to continue to build championship-level basketball year after year?
Well, you know that Coach Binford's always going to depend and rely on teaching and coaching the defensive end because that's what you have control of as a team and as a coach. Is if you teach and you have a strong defensive philosophy, then you're always going to be able to control your destiny. If you're counting on offense, it can be there some nights, and then the defense can dictate what the offense does. So she always will rely on being a strong defensive team. And you notice she didn't get a lot of transfers. She didn't go after transfers. She recruited 6 new freshmen, and hopefully able to count on them, developing them and have them stay within the program. But yeah, she does an excellent job. Obviously, she's just an excellent coach, but it's defense. Defense wins championships. And you hear people say that's kind of a saying or whatever, but a cliche, but it really is true because you can control your destiny because of your defense.
And I love that point because I really think taking a look at the championship game last year, Montana State versus Montana, it was a low scoring championship game, 57-58. She weathered a lot of those offensive lulls by playing good, solid defense. And I think that's exactly what you said. It helped her win games and it helped her win a championship. I think the other piece about her game too is just the depth. right?
Yeah.
She plays a lot of players because she wants to bring those fresh legs out on the
Right.
court because she just is relentless with what she expects on the defensive end.
Right. And like she's a great teacher of the game, and she'll teach the defensive principles that she expects. And each player on that team knows they're going to get to play, and you play hard. You don't save yourself and rest yourself because you have to play 35, 38 minutes. You know, you go in, you do your job, you play hard, and you play as a group, and then you're going to get a rest. It's a great philosophy.
So I'm going to just round out the rest of the coaches poll. We had Montana State at number 1, Montana coming in number 2, Idaho, Idaho State, Sac State, Eastern Washington, Northern Colorado, Weber State, Northern Arizona, and Portland State, more rounding out the bottom. Is there any surprises for you, or is that how you thought it would come out?
You know, it's so interesting even as when I was a coach, right? I hate to say that, but when I was a coach, it's almost like the polls always reflected what happened the year before. Mm-hmm. And these polls pretty much reflect what happened last year. And it's for all these teams, it's a whole new season. You have new players, you have returning players. How are you going to melt them together? But you can look at a preseason poll, it means nothing. And I think as coaches, it really means nothing other than if you're a lower seed, you might use that as inspiration. Look, nobody picks you, use it to inspire them to be better or whatever. But I don't think Trish feels pressure because she's the number 1 seed. Montana may be mad that they weren't picked 1 over Montana State, but you got to look out for Idaho. I mean, University of Idaho had the number 23rd team in the nation in their transfers. They ranked 23rd in the nation in the transfers they got. They're going to have the biggest player in the Big Sky, a 6'5" player.
Arthur Morera, in his first season last year, he takes over. Obviously, we saw Idaho just controlled by John Newley for all those years. And then we have Carrie Amy for 1 year, and Arthur Morera comes in, the first Brazilian head coach in D1 history. Nobody really knows what he's going to accomplish. And I'm telling you, Olivia Nelson was one of the best players in the league this last year, and he had them competing. I remember watching them here at Dahlberg Arena, and I'm like, they will be in the mix because they play hard.
I watched them play at Weber State and shot the lights out and defended. And I'm like, ooh, they're gonna make some noise in the Big Sky tournament, which they did. But they now add some of these he just has that foreign connection to recruit foreign players.
With that Brazilian connection.
Yes.
He has it. Yes.
And then you have Sac State. I think Sac State, they made runs, and they have the MVP of the preseason, of MVP of the conference.
Benta Versteeg.
I thought she by far was the best player in the Big Sky tournament. She does it all. Tough kid. And I'm excited to watch her play this year. He brought in, Picton transfers from Montana State, that he adds Picton, and Sac State, they're going to be good. Idaho State is always good. They have the nucleus of their team back. Seton always does a great job. He's another coach that really emphasized the defensive end and toughness. I've never seen kids play as hard as Seton's teams play. Physical, they play hard, they rebound. And they do it every year.
Idaho State is a little bit of my dark horse, CT, in that they finished 14-17 last year, but they were 8-10 in conference. And 3 of those 10 losses came in overtime last year. If you can remember, this was a team that was really surging and had like a 4-game winning streak heading into February and March. They returned 4 starters, Sophia Cavello and Tasia Jordan, which I think she's one of the best players in the league. Casey Spink, Piper Carlson. These are some premier players that gave him really good minutes last year. And
they're always good. And he only had 1 transfer, but he added 3 new foreigners, one from France, Iceland, and Portugal. So, he'll be good. It's going to be a dogfight every single game for every team that plays. You're never going to have these stroll in in your home court and just assume you're going to win. There's too many good players in the Big Sky to take anybody for granted.
And I also think Eastern Washington, Jody Gleason is entering
Yes.
fifth year, and rounding out that all preseason, all conference team, we have Bente Vierstig, who we've talked about, Matt Koning and Avery Waddington for Montana, two premier players, Taylor Chirick, but also Courtney Grossman, which she to me was, freshman of the year last year, but just poses so much of a threat. I mean, led the league in double doubles and just a force down low.
Right. A Montana player that both Montana teams let get away, and good for Jody, because I'll tell you what, Grossman is, she's the real deal. She rebounds, she plays defense. She just has a nose for the ball. When the ball goes up, she's always in the right place in the right time, and she is aggressive. She goes after it. Major rebounder and scorer. She does a nice job scoring as well.
And, we haven't talked much about Montana, but they really have put out, a great team last year, made that surprise run in the tournament where they really took it to Montana State, had the ball and had that shot by Mara Dykstra not come off. Montana would have gone to the NCAA tournament. But Nate Harris in his first official year, and he's got a really good nucleus in Matt Cohn, very veteran point guard, and Avery Waddington, to me, one of the most premier players in the league.
I'm so impressed with Matt Koenig's game. Every time I watch her or get to see her, she just is tough. She finds a way to score, whether it's out on the three or she takes it to the hole. And if you don't stop her, she's going to score or she's going to get to the free throw line. Yeah. And Waddington, was a freshman last year and a total impact player. Yeah, she's fun to watch. They lost my junkyard dog to graduation. I love her. Junkyard dog graduated, which talk about a rebounder.
Annie Barch, yeah.
Total, just big time.
One of my favorite players.
Yes, absolutely. That's one that a coach loves to have. You take 1 million of her.
Yes.
You take 1 million of her on your team. But yeah, they lost some big players, but they have the nucleus of their team back. And they got a few transfers.
I think that they're just going to have to take in those gaps too. I think we're going to see that a lot in filling. But Nate Harris doing a really good job building this team and developing some players and keeping them for their whole career. Well, CT, I love having you, and I hope this can be a regular segment because I would sure love to have your opinion, and I really appreciate it. So thanks for your insight this week.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to do anything you need, Krista.
Thank you, CT. Thanks as well to Tricia Binford, head coach for Montana State, entering her 21st year. And thanks to you for listening. This week's episode of the Krista Redpath Show was brought to you by Vertical Raise, your premier online fundraising platform. Coming up next week, I will continue around the big sky in women's hoops with a conversation with Idaho State head coach Seton Sobolewski, entering his 18th season coaching the Bengals.